Views on gender identity and human sexuality have rapidly evolved in recent years, leading to the breakdown of God's biblical ideal for marriage and family relationships. Many have been left searching for answers on how to raise children in a world that is increasingly confusing.
We'll be discussing this important topic with Michael Carducci, co-founder of Coming Out Ministries, today on Real Family Talk. Join us.
Welcome to Real Family Talk. During this episode, we're talking about the issue of sexuality and identity, its impact on our children, and biblical sexuality.
Michael Carducci, co-founder of Coming Out Ministries, joins us today to discuss this important topic and how we can help our children embrace their identity in Jesus. Michael, thank you for being with us today.
My pleasure.
Michael, so welcome back to Real Family Talk. We've been talking about these important issues of identity and sexuality and what God has to say about it. How can we help parents today? How can we assist them with their children so that they can grasp this reality, this important issue of sexuality and identity, and what the Bible has to say about that, so that they are growing up in an environment of real understanding of what God expects and what His intent has been all along?
Well, that really is the challenge. You know, how do we educate our children or equip them for what's coming into our world, even to preschoolers now, about identity and sexuality according to secular society, but yet at the same time, you know, every parent's concern is, I don't want to destroy their innocence. And so, of course, that's the dichotomy. I was asked to speak at a school, and they had K through 12, and they said, well, we're going to give you an hour with all the students. And I go, wait a minute, I can't say to the little kids what I say to the teenagers. And they go, oh, we'll just leave them out. And I said, no. I said, because now they have books that are actually geared towards preschoolers about identity and sexuality. And one of the books talks about, you know, Jacob in his new dress, and it shows him standing in a dress in front of his dad, and it says, there are many ways to be a boy. And then another book shows a princess boy in a purple dress and a tiara, and the father says how pretty he looks in a dress and tells him to twirl. So I'm thinking to myself, how can we address this for the children and provide something for our children so that by the time they get to the ages of 10, 11, 12, that they're not indoctrinated? And what really started to open up for me, and I just praise God for this, but because I'm not that deeply theological or whatever. So maybe from a child's perspective, I came up with a program that basically addresses it in a deeper way that doesn't destroy their innocence. And what it does is it uses Genesis chapter 1, where it talks about how the image of God was placed in males and females. So in this program with the children, I'll just say, you know, if your boys stand up, boom, the boys jump up, you know, and every kid wants to move anyway. And so then I tell them to jump up and down. And so it's a little chaotic, but they settle down. And then when they have a seat, I say, if you're a girl, stand up and spin. And so the girls stand up and they spin. And all of this is just basically, you know, just practicing an illustration of that God only made two kinds, male and female. But the point being is that God put His image in every boy to be a father, every girl to be a mother. And as we show the differences in that, and the boys and girls seem to know this pretty basically, and then we kind of move on, and I ask them, am I a giraffe? Am I a zebra, a dog, or a cat? And they go, no, you're an old man with a beard. So, you know, they understand this principle pretty easily. And so that begins kind of this program of helping our kids to understand what God's intention is. There was a scholar that basically says your kids are going to go to school for about 15,000 hours in ungodly thought.
That's right.
And that we think that drawing a picture of Noah's Ark is going to withstand the lies that they're being told in the world. And I realize, even from my own perspective and my own history, how important it is to differentiate the differences between the boys and the girls, and to talk about not only the principles of identity and sexuality in a safe way, but also to affirm that God loves you and that God created you to be that way. So this 5-day plan really kind of culminates with the 5th day, which is really the capstone, I think, to it, and it's, does God love me? because that wasn't a message that I got. I didn't think that God loved me because I thought that my earthly father had the same attributes as God, and so I basically thought that God was either indifferent to me and that I was irrelevant to him and not worth his time. So Psalms 139 is so beautiful. It really is the essence and the recipe, or the cure really for the transgender and sexuality issue, when it talks about the fact that God is in pursuit of you and that he'll go up high or down low, in darkness or light. It's all the same to God, and that his thoughts towards us are as countless as the sands of the seashore. So it begins with this beautiful love interest and how he's in pursuit of us. And then it's very clear. It says that all your members are written in God's book. And so with the kids, you know, I talk about that. I go, are your fingers and toes in God's book, and your eye color and your hair color, and we go through all of that. And so it implies that also your sexual identity is in there. So we don't go there, but the kids know that everything about me was written in God's book. So it wasn't happenstance, it wasn't a guess, it wasn't something that God randomly came up with. And then how he knit our delicate inward parts together in our mother's womb. And that really addresses a lot of contemporary issues that are going on in our world today. Yes. But that's when, as I end the program, I talk about, what if I'm confused about who I am? Because I was that kid. You know, whether I was 4 or 12 or 16, I was confused about who I was, and I needed to know, who am I? And so if I am confused, and there are children that are confused, and we can go to the Bible, and it says, you know, I can go to God, and you've made me fearfully, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. How well my soul knows it, right? And so again, if I need to know who I am, if I'm confused, I can go to God.
Right.
Yeah.
So
go ahead, Eli.
Yeah. Because I'm thinking about you sharing with us previously on other times that you've been here about that when you were 4 years old, you already rejected maleness. So when you speak to these little children and you say, all the girls stand up and twirl, what happens to that little boy who
has already rejected
wants to twirl? So how do you address that for that child?
It's so cool. It's really interesting because what we do each and every day for about 40 minutes is we take them through a different lesson. We talk about costumes. You know, every little kid likes to dress up. My nephew had a skin-colored shirt that had muscles built into it, and he would take the sofa cushion and act like he was Samson. And, you know, at the end of the day, he takes off his costume and puts it away. So we talk about how we appear can sometimes be convincing, you know, and that how we appear really matters to how people see us. We talk about different costumes that people wore in the Bible, like when Jacob, you know, took the birthright away from his brother by imitating his brother, and it was effective. And then we talk about how Leah also confused Jacob and dressed up as Rachel on their wedding day. So we say that, you know, that costumes can be very convincing, but yet do they really change who we are? And the kids understand this principle. When I was 6 years old, I have a scar that goes right across my fingertip, and I had broken a glass, and I tried to clean it up, and I made a mess and had to have stitches in my finger. But the principle that we bring out is I ask the children, can I change my fingerprint? And as we look at our fingerprints, the kids realize that theirs are unique and different. And they say, no, I can't change my fingerprint. But then I show them the scar across my fingerprint. What's really funny is all these kids, they have to see it. So I have to literally show each one of them my scar. But then they realize I can change how I look on the outside. Yes. But then we talk about the fingerprint that you have on the inside, which is your DNA. Yes. And DNA is in every drop of blood. It's in every cell in your body. Yes. And that is unchangeable. And God only made 2 kinds of DNA, male and female.
Hold that thought. When we return, we'll talk more with Michael Carducci about how the world's view on human sexuality is impacting our children and what we can do about it. Stay with us. Today on Real Family Talk, we are talking with Michael Carducci of Coming Out Ministries about sexuality and its impact on our children and society at large. So before the break, you were talking about the children wanting to see the scar, and we were basically talking about, you know, we can change who we are on the outside, because that's the prevailing thought right now, that if I don't feel, good inside, I can change myself. I can change my gender.
I can change my outside.
Yeah, and the world view that's permeating society is that that's perfectly okay. So how can parents really help their children better understand God's plan for them, God's love for them, and God's plan for sexuality?
Well, this program, I think, is a perfect way to really kind of elaborate or bring a foundation or make a foundation for the children about identity and sexuality. It's not enough that we just, paint a rainbow on a wall and put Noah's Ark in there with stuffed animals. We have to be more intentional. I actually use the story of Noah's Ark because it's another affirmation. We do the instruction of the boys stand up and then the girls stand up. But then when we start talking about Noah's Ark, I ask them, I go, who got on the ark? And the kids go, oh, the animals. And I go, well, how many of the animals got on the ark? And they say 2. And I go, well, was it 2 boy animals of every kind? Was it 2 girl animals of every kind? And they go, no, it was a boy and a girl. And I go, why would God need a boy and a girl to get on the ark? And they go, so they can have babies. And what I love is that if they can tell me the answer, then they feel good about the fact that they knew something. And then the smart ones, they say, and 7 of the clean animals. And I go, that's right. So we've now given them a second affirmation that God's design is male and female. And then we talk about who else got on the ark? Well, Noah and his sons. And I go, did anybody else? Yes, their wives. And I go, why would God need Noah and his sons and their wives to get on the ark? And again, they say, so they can have babies. And I affirm to them, I go, would we be here if Noah and his wife and their sons and wives didn't get on the ark? And they go, no. So again, we've given them this affirmation. Then we also want to take our children to the zoo. I speak in inner city schools in New York City as well as in little country towns in Nashville, Tennessee or nearby. And what is really important is to just basically do another affirmation. And I say, what does it take to make a baby chick? And the little kids are excited and they go, a rooster and a hen. And I go, that's right. So there are differences in these species and it takes a male and a female to procreate. So again, we've given them 3, 4 different affirmations of God's design of male and female. We also talk about the fact that the devil, who used to be an angel of light, and God only makes good angels, but we know that the angels were created higher than the humans, but we know that the devil wants to be like God. And some of the kids will correct me and say, no, he wanted to be God. I go, that's right. So, right, and so we use John 10:10 that says that the thief comes to steal, kill, and to destroy. And so imagine how upset the devil was when God bypassed the angels and gave the gift of creating life to man, and that the image of God, the express image of God, was given to every boy to be a father and every female to be a mother. And so, wow, this beautiful gift when the father looks into his baby's face and says, wow, she's got my nose, and a mother says, wow, he's got my ears, whatever that is. How beautiful that we are image bearers of our Creator and our Redeemer, and the devil is going to try to steal this gift. I haven't told them anything about identity or sexuality according to the world, but I've given them a foundation, and I think that that's a beautiful way to stay harmless as doves and yet wise as serpents.
Right.
Yeah.
But the world is pushing back.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
The world is saying, oh, yeah, but there's sin and things have changed and there's new science.
Well, much more than that. Much more than that. Social media, the public media, they're bringing all these messages, and their peers, and a lot of that is impacting our children. What do we do to help parents, assist parents, with helping them to bring their children back to God's image and some of what you've already said? How do we make that easy for parents?
So I want to kind of address what you were saying, Elaine. It's not that the world has been pushing forward. Unfortunately, the church has been sitting silent. And that is where this message has really swelled, because we have not done our due diligence, and to have family ministries, in the general conference to really address this, I'm really excited, because I think that we need to be proactive. We need to be on the front lines, recognizing that we have to take every opportunity that we can to instill these principles before our kids get to the age where the media is getting to them. For parents, the most important thing, and it's so simple, it's absolutely so simple, is that we need to listen to our children. We need to create this open dialogue with our children. I was approached by a man that was struggling with same-sex attraction. I was in a foreign country, and he came up to me and he said, you know what the church is really missing? And I said, what? And he said, they don't listen. We think that we have the answer. We think that, that we have it all worked out and figured out. He said, but really what a person needs more than anything else is just someone to say, what's your story? What happened in your life? And when you do that, it's really the principles in ministry of healing where it talks about that Christ's method was that he reached out to people where they were. He represented himself as someone who desired their better good. He won their confidence. And by doing that simple thing,
Absolutely.
It's not my job to win your soul. That's the Holy Spirit's job. Yeah. I believe the most important part that we can do is to listen to people and to have an open heart. When a parent demonstrates that to a child, when you just ask your child, hey, what's going on in your world? And when you create that open dialogue and tell them the truth, that you weren't born under a cabbage patch. And of course, we don't want to destroy our child's innocence, but we want to give them enough to where they know you are a reliable source. I can get the truth from you, but also I'm not going to be shamed or humiliated because I didn't have that parent that I could go to and say, I feel like a girl trapped in a boy's body. The message I got from my parents is you obey and you comply, but that didn't take the problem away. All it did was it shut down the fact that I couldn't go to my parents as a source of comfort or truth.
As a matter of fact, the church is doing much more these days on that issue. There's a brand new website, humansexuality.org, where there's lots of resources and information.
Amen.
And we're grateful for that. And I just want to put it out there. The Seventh-day Adventist Church is not against anyone. We are for what's in the Word of God. Okay, so you have an issue,
Willie, I wouldn't have stayed. I wouldn't have stayed in this denomination if there weren't people that were willing to help me and stand alongside me, in this journey. So
Thank you so much, Michael. We have to take a short break now, but stay with us. We'll be right back. We're back on Real Family Talk with Michael Carducci of Coming Out Ministries. Before the break, we discussed the impact societal norms have on our children. Some argue that teaching children about identities and sexuality promote acceptance and inclusion, while others believe that doing so is in conflict with biblical values. Michael, what are some other issues that you've been talking to us about that are important as we navigate this area of identity and sexuality to help our children understand God's biblical truth?
Sure. I think the challenge is really how can we make identity and sexuality relative to a young person that, again, doesn't destroy their innocence, but also equips them for the onslaught of what we're getting, in our world today. One of the things that I put in the program is a study of the rainbow. And I'm just a very colorful person. I love color. And so a friend of mine that passed away several years ago, an engineer, he did kind of this Bible study of the rainbow pyramid, and he used the 6 colors of the color wheel. And then being a hairdresser, we're all about the color wheel and how you get the results that you want. But with the kids, I do food coloring, and we have the jar set up, and the kids mix the color and they stir it in, and they see what happens when you mix the colors together. We talk about the rainbow being 7 colors in God's rainbow, which ironically, I didn't even know for somebody that lived in that culture for so long. But as we do that, we talk about the biblical principles. We let the Bible tell the children what each of those colors mean. And then we get down to the 7th color, because God's rainbow has 7 colors, and that is indigo. And I'm not going to give it away here, but the indigo color is so unique. It's a tertiary or 3rd level color that is unique from all the other colors. And when the kids find out what the indigo means, we just really start to see God's hand in it and how He leads and guides us. So the children really see through a practical way, a colorful way that's a lot of fun. And what's really amazing is I was at an Indian school in Arizona, and I was sitting at the table with the vice principal and his 3 kids that had been in this program through all those 5 days. And we were sitting there, and they said, look at the carrots, they're orange. And I said, what does orange mean? And they go, oh, fire, light, power, praise, and glory. That's right. Oh, look at the broccoli. What color is that? Green. And trust, mercy, and hope. And so what was so beautiful is that you give these children the principles. It's a fun way to learn, and then you can instill these principles on a daily basis as you're sitting at the kitchen table talking about the colors of the bananas and the apples and the oranges and things. So it was really a lot of fun, and it was a great way to get these principles into our young children's minds so that they have a foundation. And then when we realize that the rainbow has 7 colors distinct and in a certain order, then the kids go home and they go, Mom, this teddy bear only has 5 colors. You know, is that God's rainbow? No. Out the teddy bear goes. You know, my sheets, you know, they have 7 colors and, you know, they're in the proper order. So it's great to go through the house and to clean up your rainbows and to make sure that they have all the right colors in order.
Yeah. So what I hear you saying is that you're also encouraging parents to be careful of what they bring into their homes. That some things may be seemingly innocent and you think, oh, it doesn't really matter. Right? But it does matter. The representation. So how can parents, and actually I wanted to ask you, like, so do you guys do this training for parents as well?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
you're also training the parents.
And you know, I'm not necessarily an author, but I've been working on a program. I've actually consulted with educators in Austria, and then a woman who actually has she has a master's degree in gender studies. So they both have approved this program that I'm trying to put together, which would be a great tool to use in schools, at home, as well as in churches for Sabbath school. But I think what's really interesting also is that I think that parents have been afraid to really celebrate the rainbow, and then so if you kind of ignore it or don't put a lot of attention to it, I think that because of our fear, what's happened is the rainbow has really taken over for a certain group of people, and our children are left vulnerable.
Yeah,
so we don't have to be afraid of the rainbow. We can
it's
now
so
celebrate
shocking to me because I know I love rainbows.
Come on.
And when my children or our children were younger, and we would, you know, you'd have those sun showers when the rainbow comes out, and I'd say, "Come, kids, come, let's look at the rainbow." You know, it's God's covenant to us. And so I've been saying to people when they say, "Don't mention the rainbow," I'm going to mention the rainbow because we know what who invented the rainbow. So I appreciate that. So how do we empower parents to, as you know, take back the rainbow, if you will?
So Coming Out Ministries wants to be a bridge. You know, we're not here to condemn people, and we certainly had the experience of the group of people that we're really trying to minister to. So we don't want to ostracize anyone when we celebrate the 7-colored rainbow. But I think what's really great dialogue is when you study all of the different 7 colors, and there's only 6 colors in their rainbow, but we celebrate God's rainbow, which is in nature, the 7 colors. My question then, or the t-shirt that I want to wear is, where's your indigo? Where's the indigo? And wouldn't that be interesting? Because when I was in the gay culture, I didn't know how many colors they had, and I certainly didn't know what they meant. And so if somebody could engage in a dialogue where I can say, well, what do you mean? Well, the indigo's in the regular flag, but it's not in yours. You know, what about the indigo? And wouldn't that be a great way to kind of reach out rather than to ostracize a group of people while we're celebrating the rainbow? And we're not ashamed of that. And as our children celebrate it and understand what each of the colors mean in that, I think that that in itself could be compelling rather than to ostracize, somebody.
Powerful.
I think it's important for you to mention the juxtaposition of God's rainbow of 7 colors and the other rainbow that only has 6 colors, because we spoke about it during the break, but we didn't speak about it on camera. I think it'd be nice for you to say something about it.
Sure. So in the children's program, I talk about the fact that in Revelation 10, and I think it's verse 1, it talks about how Jesus comes back and there's a rainbow when he comes to take us home. And of course, now the kids know that God's rainbow has 7 colors. And then we talk about the Antichrist, and the Antichrist number is 6, right? And so I ask the kids, I go, well, how many colors do you think are going to be when the Antichrist comes? And they look and they go, 6. And I go, okay, well, out of all of the colors of the rainbow, and I don't want to give too much away for those that are watching about the 7th color, but that color that represents something so unique, even more so than the other 6, they say that color will be missing. And it's interesting because it becomes even subconsciously apparent, or maybe consciously apparent without saying it, that God is very specific, that his color is going to have 7 colors in the rainbow, and that 7th color is very important. And I think it also helps our children to realize, wow, we want to make sure that every rainbow that we see has those 7 colors.
Absolutely.
And it makes a great kind of game with the kids to say, okay, how many colors does that rainbow have? 12. Is that God's rainbow? No. This one has 5. That one has 6. Whatever that is to, give our kids a good foundation so that when they see the deception that they'll know.
All right, so Michael, you said you had a wonderful story to share with us about a little
Sure.
boy.
Yes, this father called me and he said, my son told his mother that he was a girl. And she argued with him, but he insisted. And he said, is my son gay or transgender? And I said, no. I said, your son is just basically identifying with his mother last night. And he said, well, what can I do? And I said, well, let me ask you a couple of questions. I said, how much time are you spending with your son? And he said, well, I work really late. I come home and, my son's already in bed. And I said, all right, well, how do you compensate then on the weekend? And he said, well, I'll be honest, my son's personality kind of gets on my nerves. And I knew that that's kind of the direction we were going because of my own history. And I said to him, well, your son is really identifying with the parent that is available to him. And I said, even though your son, you've never said that you reject him, I said, he relates to that rejection as, that you're not available to him, or maybe he's picking up that you don't like him.
Mm-hmm.
I said,
he's 4 years old.
Right.
Yep.
So he's identifying by the parent that does love him, that does take time with him, that does, comfort him. I said, if you want to help your son, you have to be available to him. You have to be there at night at 5 o'clock, hard cut off, and you have to be home and help him with his bathing, his food, evening, and you have to do things that he loves to do. And I said, so, don't expect any quick changes. This could take years to happen. And so he called me just 6 months later after we had prayed, and he said, Mike, he said, last night my son came up to me and he said, Dad, come on, let's hide from Mom because we're boys.
Wow.
What's so
Praise
amazing
God.
is that, yes,
Yep.
in just 6 months, he was able to draw him into a masculine identity.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much, Michael, for being with us. Thank you for watching Real Family Talk. Join us again when we'll share more about strengthening families and inspiring hope. See you next time.